Hello and welcome to episode 112, take two of the Sports Brief podcast. This is Colton Hall, joined by members of the Minnesota Bias podcast, Hunter Plante, as well as Daniel Revier. We were talking about before the show, Daniel, about a relation to Paul Revier, probably a story for another time, but yeah, I'm sorry, but no, I'm really excited to have you guys on. And, I was just kind of talking to these guys beforehand. I'll be honest here, boys. I was going to come on and say that Justin Jefferson wasn't a superstar, but then I had to recalibrate. I had to go out on my porch. I don't know if you guys have seen the memes after your fantasy football team loses. You have to just kind of like take a moment to yourself. I had to do that because I was not in a position to actually be serious about that. So I apologize to Justin Jefferson for that because he did not deserve it. But I do really appreciate you guys joining me today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Glad to be here, Colton.
So we need to start by talking about, I know you want to say something to that because here's the thing. I know I went too far overboard. I know both of you probably want to get on that. So let's talk about the fact, I don't even know what it is with this team anymore. You talk about Justin Jefferson, no matter what, he's been that guy that when things are on, he's tough to stop. I don't care who you are. He's just one of those guys that he's going to get his. He's like Kobe back in the day, RIP. He's going to get his. But for you guys, when we talk about these offensive struggles that we just saw with the Green Bay Packers, I feel like I don't know, something's missing. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I can start. I think it's a wide receiver too. I just look at, it's just so tough because Jefferson, he's going to, like you said, he's going to get his, right? But you have to be able to spread the ball around a little bit. And adding TJ Hawkinson, such a great trade. I mean, that's going to go down as a great trade in Kwesi's first year, but I still think you need a wide receiver to help with that. Adam Thielen's not that guy anymore. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, one of the best wide receiver combos when they were in their prime. That's why I am on the obviously, hopefully we get far in the playoffs, but I am going to beat my drum to say we need to draft a wide receiver first round. I think it's so important to take a wide receiver or or whatever it is, trade for one, whatever it is. You need that guy to go along with Justin Jefferson. So I think Kirk kind of forces the ball to Jefferson as far as he should. I don't think he should do it as much as he should. And then the offense line. Obviously, we had 3 guys out on Sunday. That's been a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump on that. I'm going to tell you it's the offensive line all day. Look at the games that we've struggled in. The games that we lost it came down to Kirk couldn't get the ball out. These routes that Kevin O'Connell wants these guys to run are slow developing routes, and they rely on a good offensive line. You look at the Dallas game, pressure. Philadelphia, pressure. And then this last week against the Packers, just an awful pass rush team. Just terrible. They have guys, but they just haven't put it together this year. And Kirk can't get the ball out. And it comes down to the fact that Brian O'Neill's gone in the first quarter. You're on your second string center. He goes down in the first quarter. It all comes together. And then you look at how many false starts we had because the center didn't know the cadences. And I'm telling you guys, I have never, to my memory, cussed out a singular player as much as I did. That, what is his name?
Chris Reed. Yep.
Chris Reed, yeah.
What a stooge!
But again,
what is he even doing on a roster? And everybody's telling me he's the third string. No. First things first. He's the second string. He came into that game as the backup. In a game like that, if you're coming in as number 2, you might get the ball. You might be called on. And then to come in and not know how to do your job, not know the cadences, I'm sorry, but you know that you're going to go in as the backup. And Kirk is a guy that's been known to work with players. He's a guy that's known to work with people if they ask. So, if you get to the end of practice and you're saying to yourself, I don't know if I know the cadences, you got to have the confidence to step up and say, hey, Kirk, I know we might be playing on Sunday. I just want to know if you got 5 minutes to go over cadences with me. This dude didn't know when to snap the ball. 2 delayed games on Kirk Cousins, at least 2 false starts caused by him not snapping the ball. I mean, it was probably more like 5. It comes down to the offensive line. They're not healthy, and now we're trying to make a playoff stretch without Brian O'Neill. It absolutely, in the games that we've lost, it has come down to the fact that Kirk couldn't get the ball out.
That's interesting. You know, I feel like Daniel, thank you for that, because I have harped on the offensive line for a while now. Hunter, I have to ask you this, because kind of piggybacking off what Daniel said, you know, I really feel like this is a position where, like Chris Reed, like I know you wanted to kind of chime in on Chris Reed there for a second. I'll give you your opportunity, but I really feel like a guy that I literally did this guy's literally played maybe 100 snaps in the preseason at center, maybe 100 snaps. And like, I know that you want to sit here and make excuses. He came over as a utility offensive lineman from the Colts. You know, he stepped in for Quentin Nelson, did admirably, all the things you want to fill in there. But the point is, you know, Daniel really had something. I felt like it's the fact that, yes, it all starts up front. You got to have a guy that, you know, if you don't know what's going on, you have to ask that question. You have to be in a spot where, hey, you know, you have to know what's going on, even if you're not confident in, or you don't want to look like the dummy. I always face that on our teams, my teams growing up. I didn't want to look like the dumb kid, but I always asked the question, just because you got to ask the question. Now, Hunter, you know, it's mentioned that, you know, it's funny you mentioned potentially going for a number one wide receiver in the draft, and I also kind of ask this question, maybe to both of you, like, it came down to the fact that, yes, Kirk Cousins did not have enough protection. Like Oli Udoh, though, at right tackle, I'm not necessarily worried about that. Like, you know, so do you potentially see yourself with Ed Ingram, who hasn't exactly worked out? Do you potentially see yourself, you know, with Garrett Bradbury being that guy that you re-sign? And I know we'll talk about free agents in a second, though. But do you like where, if you want to go to wide receiver, fine, but if you could go anywhere on this offensive line, where are you looking at as either A, as the main issue, and B, as a potential first round draft, if that's indeed where it falls?
So to me, I'm probably in the minority of it, but I don't know if the offensive line has been as bad as people think. And I know Kirk Cousins, most hits in his career, most sacks in his career, but I think some of that relies on the routes too. Like Danny talked about it, Kevin O'Connell, he makes guys run a long time, right? Like the routes are long. I think this offensive line is the offensive line of the future. I'm all for signing Garrett Bradbury back. I think Garrett Bradbury has had a Pro Bowl career, which he did get named to the Pro Bowl, I believe, as a
alternate, yep.
An alternate, and that's something we didn't expect coming into this year. I think this offensive line is a very good offensive line for the future. Now, I think KOC needs to do a better job of saying, okay, when we play San Francisco, when we play the Eagles, we can't run these routes as long as we do. We got to get the ball out. We got to get them out fast. That's what teams do against us, and it works against us. So to me, I think Ed Ingram, obviously a lot of speed bumps throughout the year, but I think he's going to be just fine. He's a really good run blocker. You know, I don't know. I'm just in the camp where I think the offensive line's fine. Obviously, losing Bradbury and Schlottman and Oli Udoh, or Brian O'Neill, having Oli Udoh there, it scares me going against Joey Bosa in the divisional round with Oli Udoh.
Oh yeah.
But I think you need more depth behind the offensive line as opposed to filling in a starter. You know, if it is Ingram or whatever, I think you need more depth on the offensive line.
Okay.
Well,
so
and I am actually going to agree with that. For the record, I do think that the offensive line has been better than most. It's been a good year for pass rushers. Let's be honest. There's a lot of pass rushers having really good seasons, and there's not.
Well, and look at all the pass rushers we've played. Right, we've played some of the best in the NFL. Right, we've played Kayvon Thibodeau, who's going to be a stud. He showed it the week before. We've played the Eagles, who have an awesome off defensive line. We've played Von Miller with the Bills. I mean, we've played Quinton Williams. We've played a lot of really good defensive lines, and we have 12 wins.
That's true.
And I'm not going to say that it's the fault of the whole season, but look at what's happened in the games that we've lost. Those are the games when the offensive line failed. They struggled, and I think it is a coaching problem. It's a problem of, you know what, if you're going to have Micah Parsons coming up against Ed Ingram, you probably shouldn't plan for a whole lot of deep routes. If you're going to have him coming up against Nick Bosa, not Joey Bosa, by the way, if you're going to have him coming up against Nick Bosa, Oli Udoh against Nick Bosa, you're probably going to want to run a lot of short routes across the middle. What was working against the Packers this last weekend? Short routes to TJ Hawkinson across the middle. Anytime we threw to the outside, it was a bad play. There wasn't time. When you talk about what do we need to add, though, I mean, I'm not against going for a wide receiver in the end of the first round, But who's there? Who can you get? Who can you get in free agency? Who can you get in the trade market? There's three really desperate needs that I think the Vikings have. I don't think Ed Ingram is the guard of the future, so you got to go out and get a guard. You definitely do need another wide receiver. I do believe in that. But you got to get a corner. We need a shutdown corner. Honestly, the free agent market probably isn't the place where you're going to get any of those. Marcus Peters is a free agent. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but seriously, when I look at the team, I'm saying, get me a guard who can plug up that interior. Ed Ingram could be the best backup guard in the league, but I do not believe in him as a starter long term.
It's weird to me that we're writing off a 21-year-old rookie who started 3 years at LSU after 1 year. That's weird to me. I think he's gotten a lot better. And to say, I mean, he was thrown into the fire week one with a new complex offense. That's just weird to me. But I mean,
we did the same thing with Drew Samia. I mean, you talk about the list goes on with those guards that we've seen, like a gong show, like at right guard. I don't know if you guys listen to Andy Carlson from the Purple for the Win podcast, but like he always points out like the fact it's just a never-ending gong show of guards, and it's like Drew Samia.
He's a 6th-round pick. I mean, you don't waste a 2nd-round pick to back him. You know what I mean? Like, that's just weird to me.
I will say I do share the frustration because like we have waited so long. We have waited so long for this entire offensive line to be like sutured up. Finally to the point where we can be like, okay, Kirk Cousins, he doesn't have all day, but this is a good enough offensive line that you kind of got to stop making excuses at some point. So it's definitely better than, I don't remember if you guys remember the Adrian Peterson 2012 days when you had guys like Brandon Fusco, Brian McKinney, all those guys. It's better than back then, but it's also one of those things where this offensive line has never been made, in my opinion, to give you 10 seconds like Patrick Mahomes has, or to a degree like Aaron Rodgers has, to give you all that time. I think this offensive line and the thing about the Vikings is they've always been able to run the football very effectively. They've always been able to give, from what I've seen, the quarterbacks, or try to give the quarterbacks just enough time. But, I know we piggybacked off it, and I'm sorry, Daniel, did you want to say something real quick?
Well, I mean, I just want to point out that Hunter, you're calling this guy out. You're saying you're calling me out for writing off Ed Ingram after one season. And where were you on Garrett Bradbury 3 years ago?
Right. And that's the pot calling the kettle black, but I'm just saying.
I just wanted you to acknowledge that. I wanted that on the record.
Which I do, but
I'm an O-line guy. You know me. You know that I love my O-lineman. You know that that's tape that I actually do watch and actually know a little bit about. I don't know crap about wide receivers. I know when guys are really good and I know when they're really bad, but I can't give you anything medium wise. You look at the things that Ed Ingram struggles with, and they're not things that he's going to be able to pick up at a fast enough pace at this level. The number one thing I talk about, you talk about a guy like Garrett Bowles, left tackle for the
Denver Broncos. Yep.
For the Denver Broncos. Thank you. His issue when he came into the league, he had a lot of holding penalties. So what did they do? They worked on hand placement. That's a thing that you can teach at that level. Ed Ingram he lacks instinct. His hand placement is fine. His footwork is fine. His instincts aren't there. He doesn't pick up things very well. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong on this.
His footwork isn't fine because he stepped on Kirk Cousins 3 times this year.
And
his footwork isn't fine.
It's tough.
That's tough. I did forget about that. But I mean, there's certain things that you can teach at the NFL level, but there's certain things that if you don't innately have at this point, you're not going to pick up, and you're going to be a career backup.
I guess. Yeah, just really quick, Colton. I guess my only argument is I think there's more positions to go attack, like cornerback, like wide receiver.
Yeah, but corner and wide receiver, based on what we need, I'd rather see them go get that in free agency or on the trade market.
With what money?
What
money are you going to spend? I mean, unless you cut Adam Thielen, but before June 1st,
wouldn't be a bad idea.
I guess and you don't have you only have 5 draft picks, so I mean it's going to be a very creative offseason. But obviously we're still in the season, so I'm excited about that. So
Mhm.
that can wait, I guess.
And I'll say this before we get too deep into the weeds here. I feel like if there is any coaching staff, like if there is any group of guys that we have already seen that has transformed some of these guys' careers, we talked about Garrett Bradbury having a Pro Bowl season, this type year. If there is any coaching staff that I think can turn around Ed Ingram and kind of just help him continue to develop, I think it's this coaching staff. I do. We had to deal with these last 4, 5, 6 years where I didn't exactly know that our offensive line was developing. Like we saw it 3 or 4 years with Garrett Bradbury, and then finally getting this coaching staff in. I finally feel like we're in a place where we're going to continue to see all of these, like from Christian Darrisaw all the way down to Oli Udo or whoever it is, to actually fully develop those players. So I think that's definitely something that I'm excited to see.
And I got to give credit to Chris Cooper, the offensive line coach. I mean, alma mater. I mean, UND guy. I'm going to ride with him. I mean, he actually is a very good offensive line coach. He's done a very good job, I think, this year.
I absolutely 110% agree.
I think the best evidence of the fact that he has done a good job is look at Christian Darrisaw's jump from year 1 to year 2.
Oh yeah,
he was fine when he played his rookie season, but that man made a leap in year 2.
He really is Trent Williams 2.0. Like I think there's the potential is there. I'll say that at the very least.
He's such a violent blocker. I love that man.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And okay, so I know I've been talking enough about kind of talking about some of the offensive struggles for the Vikings. Now we're kind of getting into the portion of the season where and I'm going to kind of flip-flop the timeline here, guys, or the outline, excuse me. I want to ask the question if the Vikings have enough to actually go all the way. Now, I know that when you talk about the fact that we've got what we've got at this point. Like, it's just, you're right with what you got. You've got Justin Jefferson, you've got Adam Thielen, you've got these guys, you've got the offensive line that you've got. My question to you guys is simple. Do they have enough? Is there enough with the Vikings that they can, I know they already have 12 wins, but is it enough to take down a playoff team when we've faced, arguably, at least half of our wins have been against or half of our games have been against playoff teams, excuse me, not half of our wins, but we've won against tough teams. The question is, can we get it done against the playoff teams this year?
100%. I think so. I mean, you look at our offensive talent. You put it in the NFC, it's probably the second best offensive talent in the NFC, maybe behind Philadelphia, and that's a maybe. That's a toss-up, or Dallas maybe, but 100% you do. It's all going to start on defense. Can you create turnovers? We haven't created turnovers as of late. When we were winning games, when we had that, 8-game win streak, we forced turnovers. We had short fields, like the game against Buffalo. We forced turnovers. I think we do offensively. It's just going to come down to forcing turnovers. Now, do I expect us to go to San Francisco and win? I don't know. It's a toss-up. No one's going to pick us. No one should pick us. But talent-wise, we absolutely have enough what it takes. Coaching-wise, we absolutely have what it takes. Now, can KOC outcoach Kyle Shanahan? I don't know. We're going to find out. It's going to be a good test for him, I'll tell you that much.
KOC, I'm worried about it. Donatel.
But
the defensive scheme is atrocious. It's horrible. I mean, you cannot play against these teams. Yeah, I mean, obviously, offensively, I definitely agree with you. We have one of, if not the best, offensive talent groups in the league. But you look at our defense, the playbook, the tape is out. I know exactly how to beat the Vikings. I'm going to run short crossers and sit routes and eventually just take the top off, because eventually we're going to have to pull Harrison Smith down into the tackle box. All of a sudden, there's no help over the top. It's not going to work. Ed Donatel's defense is not built for the playoffs. It's built for the regular season. It's built for other teams that don't have quite the offensive power that we have. It's built for good enough. It's not built for the Super Bowl. This is not the time when we can have this in an offensive dominated league. The bend don't break doesn't work. It hasn't. It won't.
What if you trade 7 for 3s? You win the game. Now, I don't know if you can do that with San Francisco. I don't think you can trade. I think you have to force turnovers.
Okay. Who are some of the top guys that I don't want to see in the red zone? Christian McCaffrey, A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz. These are guys that we're going to be seeing all playoffs. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we host New York, and I don't even think it's necessarily a contest. But seriously, I do not see us going into San Francisco or even hosting Dallas and winning that game. It just isn't happening.
Now you want to know what? I'm going to say this. This year reminds me a lot of 2019. No one gave us any chance in hell, no one, to beat the 13-3 New Orleans Saints. No one gave us a chance. Our offense struggled at times. Our defense struggled at times. No one thought we'd go in there to New Orleans and beat them. And look what we did. Now, I'm not saying I think San Francisco is better than New Orleans, but it's the playoffs. Anything can happen. And I think we have the talent to win a game. And I think 7 will beat you. Obviously, the bend don't break. Not what you want to do, maybe, but it might work in the playoffs.
Yeah, the only thing I can see. Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Sorry, the problem with the bend don't break recently is that it hasn't been working. It's been bending, 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 and then breaking. Bending, 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 and then breaking.
I think here's the thing. So I don't know if you guys remember the 2006 Indianapolis Colts. Like towards the end of that season, like they were just getting shredded on the ground. Like they just could not stop anybody. And all of a sudden they were able to put it together. And all of a sudden, they had a playoff legitimate team. And I think the Vikings are in a similar spot, not in terms of stopping the run, but at a defense that if it can just make a couple more plays a game, like Hunter was alluding to with turnovers or, getting another sack or stop, maybe it's just coming to me now, stop dropping Danielle Hunter into coverage. It drives me up a wall. And, I think I saw a graphic of him in man-on-man coverage against Christian Watson on 2nd and 7, on Twitter today. And it's like, I know he's probably, that's probably a disguise. He's probably going to go get the quarterback, but it's like, I do not think that, there can be a lot of holdover from the way the Vikings defense has done things, but I do think that there is enough pieces here defensively as well to be able to get the job done. I really like what I've seen from guys like Brian Asamoah, guys like, Asezi Otomehu as well. Like we've seen some good things from the young guys, but like you want to put out a missing persons report. Talk about Za'Darius Smith a little bit. Like we talk about, a guy that had 3 sacks against the Cardinals, but it's been kind of MIA for really the rest of the season, if you ask me.
Still leads the league in pressures, though.
Yeah, and I do agree that, pressures are probably more of an accurate stat of how well you are actually getting to the quarterback, not necessarily sacks, because there is a little bit of, sometimes sacks come because of coverage, sometimes sacks come from a guy getting a lot of penetration up the middle. So, yeah, I'm just waiting for this defense to really ignite, especially in the playoffs. That's what I have a feeling. I'm knock on wood because I'm a Vikings fan, a superstitious one. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. But I think, this team does have the makings of like that surprise ability or the element of surprise, if you will. I think it does. But again, I mentioned the fact that the Vikings historically have tried to run the football and do it effectively. I'm really hoping that we can really establish that again as the season goes on, because I really do think that's what makes offenses a lot harder to predict. And in terms of personnel wise, just trying to put in guys, I do think that if the Vikings can really get back to running the football, these, whether it's against the Bears or whatever, I think it could help them out a lot. That's just at least a personal thought. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Also, kind of talking about, so now that we kind of touched that, yes, we believe they can get there. Really depends on defensively. The one thing I also wanted to ask you guys, and since we're on the subject of playoffs and all that, like which NFL team scares you the most? And if it's the Vikings, great. But if we're looking here, the 49ers, like with Brock Purdy right now, currently on a 9-game winning streak, they've got the defense to back it up too. They've got a good running game. Christian McCaffrey, I didn't necessarily know how that trade would go down, because he was already magnificent in Carolina, but the question was, to me, like, how are you going to do in a system that already shows you that the good running backs are a dime a dozen? So, but I do think that he has given them an extra kind of step. And Brock Purdy, I've said it for the last couple of weeks now, I think he gives you a little bit more firepower than a guy like Jimmy G.
It sure seems like it. I mean, I'm with you. I would not want to go into San Fran right now with that between that defense and the fact that Brock Purdy is the next Tom Brady or something. I don't know, man. That team scares me, but
they do.
Yeah, talk about the new Tom Brady. Who's the scariest guy in the world? Playoff Tom. Mm. I will never count out Playoff Tom, even with the shit, the garbage team that he's on right now. But like, all of a sudden this last week he's connecting with Mike Evans for 63-yard just dimes. Like this is the time when Tom Brady shows us his true colors, and that scares me.
Hunter, who worries you the most when you look at the NFC?
So I was going to say San Francisco, but I'm going to go a little bit of a wild card, both literally and figuratively. And this team might not even make the playoffs, but I'm going to go with it. To me, it's Seattle. I think Seattle's a team that could go into San Francisco and beat them because they have the weapons. Now, their defense is pretty atrocious. I'll say that. But you got guys like DK Metcalf. You got Tyler Lockett. You got a decent running game. You got Geno Smith, who's just playing out of his mind, probably comeback player of the year. It's a team that's scary, and I just wanted to switch things up with you. I don't know. I think they're a team that could beat San Francisco. Will they? Probably not. But I mean, they got it. They got talent, right? Like they got a lot of talent. They're not a rebuilding team in every sense of the word. They're not Houston with the talent wise. But yeah, I mean, Dallas is scary to me. I mean, we already saw what they did to us earlier this year. Philly doesn't scare me as much. I would rather go to Philadelphia than San Francisco, I think, because I don't know if Jalen Hurts scares me as much as the 49ers defense, if that makes any sense. And we haven't had any luck playing in Philadelphia in the playoffs. So I would say San Fran's the most scary team, but in a wild card, it's probably Seattle, but we won't have to play them at all. So,
yeah. I do think it's interesting. I know I hate to take the 49ers from you, but when I look at the top of the rest of these NFC playoff teams, when I say scared, which team scares you the most? Like, if I'm being honest, I feel like it's really tough to beat an NFL team twice, no matter who it is. And I've said it from the beginning, the Giants and what Brian Daboll has done with that team in a very short amount of time, I don't think you can overlook it. Now, the way things are kind of looking right now, the Vikings probably most likely will play the Giants there at home, the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. It's kind of looking, it's going to be interesting. And I don't necessarily think that the Giants are the team to beat in the NFC, but I think there's a little bit of, if the Vikings do play the Giants, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. I'm not exactly, I'm not exactly saying, okay, fine, who do we play next in the divisional round? I do think that the Giants do have that element of surprise as well, especially when you consider the fact that, Daniel Jones, he had a good game against the Colts. I know it's the Colts, but we barely escaped with the win against the Colts too. So I really do feel like, you really can't take any team lightly here, but I think the Vikings really are a team that do have the element of surprise and could really surprise a lot of people. Now, what do you guys think is the biggest thing that we need to see in order for the Vikings to really truly take over the NFC?
Turnovers. I mean, turnovers is such an important stat to me. I look at it. You can't turn the ball over because that game against Green Bay, was it 41-17? Yeah, it was fluky. It was a fluke. I don't think it's, you turn the ball over 3 times. You throw some dumb interceptions. You allow they had 14 points and they had 14 yards at the same time. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? That can't happen. You have to take care of the ball and you have to be able to take away the ball. That's how teams win in the playoffs, is taking away the football. And then obviously we have number 18, who's the best wide receiver in football. So I'm going to ride with number 18 all day because he's going to find a way to make a play no matter what happens. So, if we take the ball away and we force turnovers, we have as good a chance as anyone to be in Arizona in February.
Let me ask you this. Do you think okay, I'm a guy that I don't love losing, obviously, but I really feel like sometimes losses, you can learn more from your losses. Like the saying goes, you can learn more from your failures than your successes. I really feel like the Vikings can learn a lot from this loss to the Packers. You go into Green Bay, you go into Lambeau there, and it's in a way, I won't say the Vikings overlooked the Packers, but it had kind of that feel, if you ask me. I felt like the Vikings were okay, worst case scenario, we could kind of go in there and come back from this like we've done all year long. And then they go into Green Bay. And this is the thing that drives me nuts too. It wasn't like Aaron Rodgers was his old self. He went 15 of 29 for $115 and a touchdown and no picks. It wasn't, the vintage 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was the fact that You had a 105-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. You had a block punt that you don't score on, and plus, then you get 3 points out of that deal, which I don't. Winning teams don't do that in my mind. You also, like you said, throw those interceptions, those 3 picks. The running game wasn't going for you. You were pigeonholed into kind of coming back, early, and it kind of led into the rest of the late of the game. But I don't know. I really do feel like this team is going to learn a lot from this game. At least I hope I do. What are your guys' thoughts after a game like this, other than not going on social media like me for a couple of days?
What's the old adage? It's not enough to love winning. You got to hate losing. Like, that's what you got to feed off of. You got to think about, how did you feel after you got embarrassed? And I mean embarrassed 3 times on the national stage. 3 times you've been put on a pedestal and said, this is the game to watch. This is going to be incredible. Against the Eagles, against the Cowboys, and against the Packers. This is the game that we're going to broadcast nationwide. The only time that places you're not getting broadcasted or where the local market is playing. Like, you gotta look at that and say, that freaking sucked. I hated how I felt there. How do I make sure that never happens to me again? You can't love winning. You gotta hate losing more.
Sorry to interrupt, Danny, but look, what was the theme in that game? What did we do that they didn't do? We turned the ball over.
Yeah,
like,
no,
you go to Philadelphia, you turn it over 4 times.
Yep.
3 times in the red zone, you still have a chance. You get a blocked field goal, you turn the ball right back over. Dallas, first possession, you fumble. Okay, well, there goes that. Green Bay, turn the ball over 3 times, you get 3 points on a block punt, which probably should have been a touchdown on the block punt, right? And then Aaron Rodgers' knee is down when you force a fumble and Jordan Hicks gets tackled by him. Like, just stupid, fluky stuff like that. Like, this team, for all the narratives that they're a fluke, you don't win 12 games by being a fluke. That doesn't happen. Screw the point differential. Point differential means nothing.
Dumbest thing. The dumbest thing.
It's the dumbest thing in the world. You're not a fluke. You're not lucky if you win 12 games. Okay. And I'm just going to go on a little rant here. I don't know if you heard about Peter Bukowski last week and all the stupid stuff that he said. And one thing he said that really blew my mind is winning close games isn't a skill. Okay. But last year he would say, the Packers are winning close games. That there's something to that. Okay, so when the purple and gold do it, it's not a skill. It's just luck. Mm-hmm. That ain't luck. Coming back from 17 down against Buffalo isn't luck, right? To me, that ain't.
Nope.
The kneel down, that might be a little bit lucky. Okay, I get it. Patrick Peterson getting an interception on the goal line, that isn't luck. To me, this team is good enough, and we're not a fluke. And I think if San Francisco sees us, they're going to have to be a little bit worried, because we do have the options. We do have the team to beat them. And I think they're going to have to be a little bit scared going into the postseason.
So as we kind of look to the playoffs, I'm excited about this because, like, I know Hunter did a great job. Like, I was thinking like exact same thing he was in terms of the 2019 Vikings. Like, this team, it does have the element of surprise, but it also had, like, people shouldn't really be that shocked about this team because they've shown the ability to come back against tough teams. They've shown the ability, at week 1 of the season to get up on a team and be able to just, finish it out. The thing I'm really excited for, though, is, when I look at the rest of this team, though, obviously the playoffs are going to happen, but like when you guys take a look at what this team needs moving forward, like I know we also really touched on the offensive line, but, in some corners and wide receivers in the draft, but, as far as the Vikings this year that have really helped out with that goal, like who are some guys that you are really excited to potentially get back next year? I'll go ahead and start. And it's a guy that I don't know that a lot of people might agree with me on, but I think it's Patrick Peterson. I feel like he's not going to be a 5-year guy, obviously. I think it's another 1-year contract. He's probably going to get tired of 1-year contracts, but he's a guy that, another year contract, maybe incentives, $5 to $8 million. I feel like he's been a guy that continues to teach this younger group of guys. Duke Shelley's really come out of his shell, pun intended, and really done some big things, as well as Cameron Dantzler. We saw some good things from a Caleb Evans. Andrew Booth Jr. got injured way too soon. So I think Patrick Peterson, to start things off, is a guy I'm really excited to see, what the Vikings do to bring him back.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment. One guy, Patrick Peterson, he's been awesome. He deserved a Pro Bowl, in my opinion. Like, he just makes big play after big play after big play. Like, he has, 4 interceptions this year, where last year he didn't have an interception until the last game of the season, where he needed one to keep his entire interception career going, interception a season going. one guy, I don't know if you guys are going to agree with this, but one guy I'm bringing back is Nick Mullins. I mean, to me, I'm just sick of kind of having a backup quarterback like a Sean Mannion or a Sean Hill, who I don't trust in a scenario. Let's say Kirk does get hurt. Do we have the backup quarterback to do it like last year? You know, like look at 2017. Your starting quarterback gets hurt. Okay, Case Keenum, we don't know what to expect with him. He's had a decent career before that. You know, he's done some decent things. Brings us to the NFC Championship game. Like, you need a backup quarterback. Like, it showed, you know, it's showing with San Francisco. So I'm bringing Nick Mullins back. Obviously, he's going to be a cheap guy to bring back. And then maybe I'm drafting one for the future to see if I can stash on the practice squad. But it's Nick Mullins, maybe Alexander Madison that I'd want back, depending on the development of Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu, who I absolutely love. I'm obsessed with Kene Nwangwu. I think he needs more touches in the offensive backfield, but that's for another podcast. But those are the two guys that I'm really looking to bring back, is Nick Mullins and Alexander Madison, potentially Madison, depending how expensive he gets.
Mm-hmm. Guy I'm looking at, I really like him, and I think the last couple of weeks he's shown his value. Austin Schlottman, to me, is the guy that you have to bring back. I mean, I don't know if this is a guy who's a one-trick pony and can only be your backup at center. Maybe he's a guy who can come in and play guard, but this is a dude that I really would like to see come back, especially after this last weekend against the Packers. I think that really showed the value of a good backup like Austin Schlottman. This kid, I mean, he's never going to make – I don't know if he's ever going to make a Pro Bowl. I don't think he's ever a starter. I don't think he's ever this, that, and the other thing. But when it comes to a depth guy at that interior offensive line position, I think Schlottman might be the dude. In terms
you'd rather bring him back over Bradbury? Because remember, Bradbury's in a contract year.
I still want to bring Bradbury back.
Yep.
But just like the one guy that I forgot Bradbury's not back next year. That's going to be expensive.
He'll be back. I would be shocked.
No one else is going to value him like we will. But like you say, a guy like Schlottman is a guy who can really change you in terms of depth. Injuries are going to happen, especially now that Bradbury is a center with back problems. Like, you're gonna want a decent backup, and Chris Reed showed us how important a good backup center is.
Mm-hmm. You guys hit the nail on the head with, talking about a little bit about, those guys, and Garrett Bradbury is one of those guys that I'm kind of questioning how expensive it's going to be, because if I'm him, I am looking at what it could mean for, to bring him back, how much that would be, because Hunter mentioned it before with what money, are we going to go out and buy guys? I think it's going to be really tough if you are the Vikings to, I think they're going to have to pay Justin Jefferson. I think that they are going to obviously have to extend guys like Garrett Bradbury. Nick Mullins is a guy I want to bring back. As I look at the rest of this list, though, I really feel like, now I know this one might be a little bit controversial, but I really liked Oli Udoh. Now, I know last year he was a guy that he got thrown into the starting lineup, played like an all-pro for the first 3 games, and then teams found out, oh, he's got a holding problem. And then after that, it just kind of went downhill from there. When he plays right tackle, I don't have a problem with it. Like, if you look at what he did against the Packers, played 16 snaps. I believe he was at least one of the Vikings' highest graded players in that game, above a 70.0 PFF grade. Like, if you watch him, he is a natural born right tackle. Like, he really is. And I think that's why I talked about this coaching staff continuing to mold these guys and develop these guys. I still think there might be something there with Oli Udoh. Now, again, I do get the whole frustration as a Vikings fan wanting this offensive line to be good. Now, do I think he can be a starter? I think the chips are stacked against him, unfortunately. But I do think that as him being a backup guy, I do think that there's some things to go with. Now, I do think Irv Smith Jr. is out. Like, I hate to break it to Vikings fans, but I was talking to one of my buddies that's also a Vikings fan earlier today. He was talking about, he had big hopes for Irv Smith Jr. TJ Hawkinson ain't going nowhere.
Sorry to interrupt, Colton, but let's say Irv does come back for the playoffs. That's another thing you have to worry about, because there is a spot open on the 53-man roster. I'm just putting that out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Him and TJ Hawkinson could be pretty dangerous down the stretch here. I'm just putting that out there.
Mm-hmm. And need we remind you of what was it back in the day when the Patriots had 2 tight ends that you were like, oh boy, it's another weapon. Like, I'm excited for it, but the rest of these guys, that come back. You got your Shondon Sullivans, excuse me. Schlutman, I definitely think he's somebody you want to look at bringing back. Now, the one thing I did want to bring up too is this defensive tackle room, because so Kairos Tonga, he's done some really good things this year. You've had
he better be back. He better be back.
Yeah, I think he deserves to be back. Probably going to be on the cheaper side, but nonetheless should be back. Dalvin Tomlinson has earned another contract with the Vikings, if you ask me. Dalvin Tomlinson, or excuse me, not Dalvin Tomlinson. Phillips has done a really good job this year as well. The Harrison Phillips, that is, excuse me. And also, like, James Lynch, to me, like, I thought this guy would thrive in a 3-4. Because if you watch what he did at Baylor, he was just the Tasmanian devil coming off the edge. He could also pin up against the run. I was so excited about James Lynch. It's really going to be interesting for me to see really what goes on after the season with this defensive tackle room.
Yeah, and the other thing, guys, that I don't think a lot of people realize is the era that we grew up in, it might be over. The Harrison Smith might be gone. Eric Kendricks could be gone. I think Adam Thielen's the guy that's probably going to be gone. It sucks to say, but I think the legends, I would consider those three legends, might be gone. They might be gone. And as shitty as that is to say, and Harrison Smith might just hang him up. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, in my eyes anyways. Yep. He's 33. He's played for one team. He's not probably going to want to go anywhere else. I just think these guys might be gone. And as sucky for me to say, but you got to start building again like you did back in 2014, whatever it was. So it'll be interesting to see. But
and just to talk about that and to circle it back in a little bit, you talk about having to pay guys. Garrett Bradbury is a 27-year-old center that I think you have to re-sign. If he's an alternate for the Pro Bowl. His expected market value is $11.9 million.
Here's the thing though with that.
That's probably going to need to be higher.
But I don't know, because here's the thing. Garrett Bradbury, I know that Vikings fans, let's be real, we haven't been pleasant. Well, I'll say that about it because we've all been Garrett Bradbury for the last 3 or 4 years, but this year, I also think that a familiarity does breed a lot of good feelings towards the team. He knows this team. He's been with this team for the last couple of years. They've been right on the cusp of being contenders ever since he's been here. I really feel especially if the Vikings do continue to play like they do in terms of when they're being dominant and they're playing like the team that they know they can play like. I don't know. I think he could consider. I hope he could consider potentially taking more money to go to another team, because let's say he does take that $12 million to go to the Jaguars. They're a good team right now. That's definitely not a good example now when I think about it, because they've got Luke Fortner there who's actually done some big things this year. But you could take $12 million and go to the Texans. You could take $12 million and go to a lot of NFL teams. But I do think if the Vikings get it done this year, that definitely plays a role in this. My thoughts, at least.
And the other thing too, he and Kirk have a great relationship. Mm-hmm. Kirk loves this guy. And there have been days, and like you say, the Vikings faithful have not been kind to Garrett Bradbury. We haven't. But Kirk loves this guy. He says a lot of positive things about him, and I think Bradbury really likes Kirk. That's, for a center, that goes a long way.
Mm.
But again, no matter what happens, the Brinks truck is going to be in Justin Jefferson's backyard.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't care who we sign. I mean, I don't want to know the contract for Justin Jefferson. That's all I'm going to say.
I've been kind of thinking about this, though. So if there is any wide receiver, if we had to, when we talk about a couple years ago having Stephon Diggs, getting the contract extension early and all of that, going to Buffalo, Justin Jefferson has his tendencies to be, a little bit more boisterous in a lot of ways. I do see him being a guy, though, that he doesn't necessarily call for the bag. Here's what I'm saying. He is a guy that is, he's a fiery competitor. You saw him against the Packers. He wanted to win that game. He wanted to get the ball more. He wanted to do his thing. I've never taken Justin Jefferson the way he acts during games, and sometimes when he gets fresh, I've never taken that as he wants the ball like Randy Moss did back in the day, or give me the with Stephon Diggs. I feel like he's more of a guy. Yes, you've got to pay him a good amount. I would say at least $20 million a year is a starting point. But I really feel like he's a guy that, especially if the Vikings and Kirk Cousins do put a little bit more value towards helping him out and really the rest of this team. And if they look good for next year, I don't know. I see Justin Jefferson more of a guy that values who he's going to play for as opposed to how much necessarily the check is. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, he's going to have the Vikings are going to have to pay $20 million a year at least, probably closer to 25 because Tyreek Hill, that massive contract last year is probably closer to 25. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I get a feeling with Justin Jefferson that he doesn't really seem to be all about the money, but I could be absolutely way out of left field with that one.
Neither did Tyreek Hill, and then all of a sudden he just up and out of nowhere wants to get out of Kansas City.
True.
Justin Jefferson will be the highest paid wide receiver in football. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. There's no guy in the NFL I want more than Justin Jefferson right now. So
I agree. I think that's definitely something that, he's definitely not someone you want to lose. And I know before the start of the episode, I was going off on it. But again, I really feel like this team is heading in a direction that, if it comes back strong against the Bears but finally finds a way to get a win in the wild card, I'm excited for what the rest of what this playoff road can hold. Anything else that you guys want to mention before, we put a cap on this?
No, I mean, it's been a weird season. It's been, it hasn't been like 2009 where pretty much every game we've dominated, for the most part. It hasn't been like 2019 where we were decent. We weren't great, but we were decent. We beat some good teams. And it hasn't been like 12 where we were just really bad. We were a really bad playoff team. This has been the own 2022 Minnesota Vikings. And at some point, that winning culture is going to matter in the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to be the wild card round. I don't know if that's going to be the divisional round. But you see all the time, San Francisco, how many teams have they blown out this year? A ton, right? They're not used to maybe playing in these close games. So you have the advantage there. And the divisional round, when you're going to San Francisco, I think you have an advantage in some areas, offensively being one of them, where they have to be concerned. But this has been a weird year. It's been a fun year. It's been a thrilling year. Insert adjective here. I don't know what word there is to go with it because it's been unbelievable. And Vikings fans are always going to complain, but I've just been enjoying the ride.
Yeah,
we're in the playoffs. That's all I care about. And I hope we don't see Kirk this week. I just don't think there's any need because San Francisco, they're not going to be losing to Arizona. Yeah. You're not going to get a 2 seed. So
that's another thing real quick as we get out of here, and then I'll let you take it away, Daniel. Is there a point to playing the start? Like, I know that you want to get that sour taste out of your mouth from the Packers game. I know, but wouldn't you much rather save that energy and use that preparation for the Giants, or potentially most likely the Giants, excuse me. And plus also heal up.
The only reason you would play is because you are playing before San Francisco, so there's a chance, right? Like they're playing at 325, so there's a chance, a very slim chance, but Arizona's just horrible. Yeah. So they're not going to lose to Arizona. So to me, I wouldn't play him. I know KOC wants to play him, but I also think you have to get your big dogs some rest.
I wouldn't want to go into the playoffs on 2 losses.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go into that. No, I mean my review of the season, I'll tell you straight up, I never thought I'd have my cardiologist on speed dial in my 20s.
That's so true.
We are.
That's what I've been saying quite often. I'm like, the Vikings are the leading cause of heart issues in the state of Minnesota and probably a 5-state region right now. Like, just like week after week, like, does this team always have to do this? My wife is so tired of hearing me complain. I just sit there and I'm like, honey, like, and she's actually getting more into it now than I am, which I appreciate definitely. But I just sit there and I think she even mentioned it one day. She's like, does it always have to be like this? And I'm like, I know, like that's literally this entire, that nothing embodies, nothing really speaks more about this season than that saying right there. But, like I said, well, like you guys really alluded to, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be something that we have to just enjoy. Like we cannot, because some of those other seasons where it didn't go according to plan either. So yeah.
And going back to my original thought, guys, people talking about fluke and, how we win, whatever it is, you win a Super Bowl. No one cares how you win it.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
they don't ask how, they ask how many.
Right. If we win a Super Bowl, they're not going to ask if Josh Allen fumbled at the 1 yard line for a touchdown. They're not going to ask if Greg Joseph made a 61-yard field goal.
Yep.
They're not going to ask if, Patrick Peterson had a pick six. Or they're not going to ask these so-called fluky things that happen. The only thing
they're not going to put a huge differential on the point differential either. Like, hey, you won. That's right. It. Like, it's like, I don't know. This team, I think they're headed definitely in the right direction with Kevin O'Connell. I definitely think there's going to be changes. I know you mentioned, I hate to see that or even think about Harrison Smith, my guy, not being there, or, it is sad, but, I think Hunter really, like, Hunter should be the poster child for just spreading positivity among Vikings fans. Like, just enjoy the ride. Like, I actually that really resonates with me because, like, I just sit here and I'm like, I'm always worried about it week to week. I'm like, what's going to happen this week? But it's like, just enjoy it. Like, it's like, we're in the playoffs, and it's definitely not the same team. Like, when we talk about like the 2012 Vikings, where it's like, everybody knows we're going to run the football with Adrian Peterson, and like we're really thinking Joe Webb is going to beat the Packers. Like, yeah, I doubt it, but I am excited for this year, and I am excited to see how this thing finishes. And I'm going to take a breath. I'll mark my words.
I will say this: I am a positive person when it comes to my favorite football team. But if we lose to Philadelphia on a last-second field goal in the NFC Championship game, no one better talk to me for about 3 months. Yeah, my girlfriend included, because I will be the hastiest person alive. Like, I will not, I will be pissed off. Like, yep. I don't know. When they lose, I feel like my dog just died. Like, that's any game. But you also got to look.
Friends for a long time, Hunter. I'm putting you on a watch list if the Vikings lose on a last-second field goal.
As you should, because it is. I probably take it as hard as anyone when they lose. So. I don't know. I'm excited, but I can't imagine what happens when we win a Super Bowl. I don't want to know what I do. I might be I don't know. I'll let you guys figure that out, but I don't know what I'm going to do.
Crookston, Minnesota.
Yeah, it's going to be everywhere.
He works for the local college.
Yeah, it's going to be everywhere. I think that'll be every person in every town. It's going to go nuts when we finally do get that elusive Super Bowl ring.
No matter
where. In Erskine, Minnesota, the guy streaking through the streets celebrating he's going to be the mayor.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I feel like I would be the guy that shows up to work like half purple, half gold. Like I would be the guy. I even asked my boss that back when I first went to the news station a couple of years ago. It was back when the Vikings somehow made the playoffs. They beat the Saints. I was like, I asked my news director, I'm like, is it going to be bad if I show up for a live shot with half my face painted? And he's like, yeah, don't come back into the station if you do that. And I'm like, I understand. I just had to try. I had to ask. So no, this team for the last couple of years has always done this to me, where I get my hopes up and I feel like we're in a spot where like, I'm okay. Like I'm at peace. Like, that's been so hard for me lately. No,
playoffs is a different dog.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
For me, playoffs is an absolute different beast, because I know, like, they lose week 6. Okay, I get to watch them next week.
Yep.
And that so be it. Playoffs, that's different. Like, I can't watch this team for another, 6 months or whatever, 7 months. But I'm just going to enjoy it. I think we have the team to do it. I think we have the coaching staff to do it. So I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to be fun. And I'm very nervous already for January 22nd when we play the Giants, or whatever day it is.
Yeah. Well, no, I got to say, thank you guys so much for this. As a Vikings fan, it is therapeutic. I do save money on having to go to my therapist. So I appreciate you guys for, coming in here. Daniel, it's always a pleasure. I honestly would not rather talk to anybody else about the Vikings. Thank you guys very much.
Appreciate you, buddy. This was fun.
Thanks for having us back on, man. It's always an absolute pleasure.
Oh, yeah. You guys will continue to be on. And you know what? I think we will all send up our prayers for the Vikings as we move forward with this Bears game and the rest of this season. Anything else as we head out of here?
Yeah, I just want to say too, I know this isn't going to reach him, but Devon Hamlin, I mean, that's not going to reach him. It's probably not going to reach Buffalo, but what happened yesterday is probably something that we'll never see in our lifetime. I mean, you see it all the time, right? You see that kind of hit every single time, right at the line of scrimmage. And for him to have a cardiac arrest and to be fighting for his life right now, it's scary. And Bill's Mafia is real. I know they're fighting for him and they're praying for him. And just wanted to put that out there before we left because it is a scary sight. And he's a good player, so I hope he gets back to where he is because he is a really good player. The Vikings saw firsthand this year when we played him, and for a 24-year-old guy to take a life-changing event like that, it's just scary. And hopefully he's probably not back this year, but hopefully he's back playing the sport he loves certainly pretty soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thank you for that because that is definitely something, no matter who you talk to, no matter who you watch, it is something that I know we all enjoy, but in one instant like that, we can all be reminded very quickly of what this life is truly about. And obviously prayers out for the Hamlin family moving forward. Absolutely. So, thank you for that, Hunter, as we head out here. You guys have been listening to the Sports Brief podcast. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. Really excited to bring you continue to bring you the latest coverage. So stick with us. And thank you from our friends at the Minnesota Bias podcast. So with that, we will go ahead and get out of here. And thank you all for joining us.